Hello there everybody and welcome to R6 POV, and today we are finally jumping into some long-awaited analysis content. The intro for this video will be a little bit extended, so if you're not interested in this jargon, feel free to skip ahead. So hello finally, in person, I'm Guz. I am a professional Rainbow Six Siege commentator, owner and operator of this channel, and we're finally going to extend our wings a little bit here on the channel and try some new stuff. Currently we've got full-length match VODs, we've got some edits, compilations, etc. But now we're going to finally dive into analysis, and I want to try a couple of different formats. This one, for instance, is going to be more casual, laid back. We're just going to jump into a VOD cold, sort of just play it out, chill out, have a chat. It's not going to be anything all too serious, but going forward, I probably will also dabble in more structured videos and just get a feel for it. I want to see what I enjoy making and what you enjoy watching. But I'm not going to waffle on forever, so let's jump into today's video. So today we're going to be talking about everyone's favorite LATAM team, Reven, and more specifically Joe in his unfortunate performance against Team Liquid. But for a bit of context, let's talk about their lead up into this game, because for them, phase 1 was actually not too bad. They started off with that 7-3 against North Eption, so that's a thumbs up. I then casted them against Sonics and they got outdone in the information and prep department from the Sonics support staff, so that was a bit of an L, unfortunately. We then go on to the best of 3 reappearance against North Eption, and that was, to put it lightly, an interesting game of Siege.
The left side, he gets a 9, he does with the SMG 11! Sayochen goes nuclear to save it for North Eption!
And finally, we then have that 0-7 against Liquid to open up the account in phase 2. Now, for Joe specifically, there's a lot to talk about, but the biggest stat for me, and the most interesting one, was that he had the most entry engagements per map of any player in the tournament. So he was always in the front lines, and more often than not was able to dictate whether Reven were in a great position heading into the late round, or the rest of the team had to try and salvage it for him falling early. Now, spoiler alert for Joe in this game, he does unfortunately pull off the James Bond. He goes 0-7, and we're mainly going to look at this particular replay file and see how much of that was bad luck and how much of it was just him and perhaps the rest of the team playing bad. Alrighty, let's jump in then, round number 1, and I've set Joe's settings as best as I can. Fairly certain he runs 4-3. I wasn't 100% sure on the FOV, so I think I set it at 90. But let me know your feedback if you'd prefer to see just default settings or the player settings. I think it gives a slightly better insight if we do it this way. Anyway, drone gets taken down, so no MES information available to Joe for this first round. Joe then spawns in, sets himself up over towards front door, and sends pretty much an identical drone now to try and get that information back over towards mezzanine. He can see that immediately it isn't cleared. Pings out the mirror as well down below. But he wants to get control above, which makes sense on a site like this. You can then allow the likes of Draw on the sledge to come across, open things up. He is met with his castle barricade though, and we don't know whether he has gone 6 in pocket or not. Either way, he elects to actually manually punch open the door, checks his drone as well, and he can clear this whole mez position. So the rest of the team now can likely make their way from library across, start applying pressure on these positions. But he spots one. So Nesk on the wall, yellow ping, pardon me, scans, smacks, tries to go for the kill. He has an advantageous position there. So for me, that's just a bad play. That's one that you should be winning, although he could have maybe done with a little bit more pressure from library. Easier said than done when Resets is holding this and has hatch control though, of course. Alright, into round 2 then. Solus is on the board. A couple of drones have been dealt with here by Team Liquid. But fortunately, a bit of a W for Joe, at least in this round. He is able to get that drone set up on mezzanine. Again, really good information available. This is a difficult one for defenders to spot. It should be a position that you are checking if you're on the defense, because it is really, really common. But either way, he gets away with it. And with that pretty common mezzanine mirror setup facing in towards library, Joe will be pretty keen, I think, to apply pressure from this side of the map. Try and isolate that player maybe on an island. Force a rotation, perhaps. Try and find that pick. But either way, he'll post up. So not looking to make an immediate play. Bit of an awkward trade goes out. technically a 4v4. Joe will just sit and wait. Again, Team Liquid are playing this line of sight from Office, which is interesting. It's quite aggressive. It makes it difficult for him to maybe make a play with safety to his right because he's mindful of a half-wall swing. And we actually see a quick exchange there. So Valkyrie gets out and the Castle of Lagonis repositions. And I'm unsure as to whether or not Joe has seen that. He drones forward, doesn't check that box position to his left. He's got his eyes set on Palu on the Goyo. So the Gun 6 goes out. There's a Vulcan canister on that, so stalls him out. He pushes forward, and then he gets swung from that box position. So again, that's just a bad play. Didn't have the information needed. If he did, he would have been in a much better spot to make that play. He could have obviously held down that angle, and Lagonis was so low on HP, he wins that fight 99 times out of 100. So a switch up then from Joe in this particular round. He's jumped off the line. He has been extracting much from that operator, so onto the IQ. Good counter onto Nesk, playing the Valkyrie, of course. So provided he stays alive, he can provide value in that sense. Just a drone set up towards the bottom of the west main stairs. And that may be used to exploit a back push later on in the round. So secondary drone now being used by Joe. Again, seems pretty eager to get information over towards Mez. He spots the Valkyrie, playing actively on that mirror window and can relay that to the team. It does get taken down, so that information not live. Also then spots out that there is presence on that boiler extension. Deployable shield, Vulcan canister. And we'll see what he elects to do. Does he try and aid the team up above on that clear, or does he maybe make some sort of solo back push? Keeping in mind, again, that depending on where these Valkyrie cameras are located, Team Liquid might have a lot of information, and if Joe isn't actively playing to deny that, that could put the rest of the team at a disadvantage. So he does eventually get out that scanner. Spots 1 of 3, so that's something. Still though, he's going to find it very difficult to clear this shield. That's not a fight that is likely to win. There's also mirror window as well, with line of sight facing down the hallway. So this is not a position Joe can push, and he rightfully recognizes that, falls back. So far, this is actually a pretty good round from Reven. They're just poking and prodding. They did eventually get Nesk on that roam. But if Joe really wants to push this, he needs to call for grenades on this position. Thinks better of it. There's vertical control now for the team. One of the gun sounds is absolutely bugging out right now. So we'll try our best to ignore that. Pre-placed nitros as well are deadly on this site. Hard to tell if the replay file's bugged, but it sounds like there was one, so Joe needs to be mindful of that. And then he just straight up loses the fight. I have no idea where that was from, so we'll look back. And would you believe it is actually a flank up west main. Volps walks over a shock drone right there. You can see it, Sam not actively watching it, and he just gets a 2-piece, and it's just a simple flank like that. It's hard to fault Joe in that instance, but that is one of the key mistakes that teams make, whether it be at a pro level or competitive level. If 5 attackers are up and no one is actively watching flank watch or actively watching a drone, it can be very easy sometimes to let those plays happen. So we head then into round 4, and this is a very important round for the attack, right? You've lost 3 straight, so the defense has shown that on the 2 primary sites and the tertiary. I mean, Chalet kind of has 3 primaries, but whatever. That they're really competent, they're confident, they're coming into the game strong. But good attacking teams can learn from those previous rounds, those previous objectives, and put that into action now from round 4 onwards, and at the very least claim 2 rounds to make it competitive for the second half. So we'll see how Reven and Joe respond. Again, spoiler alert, the game is very one-sided, but we'll see how they tried to bring themselves back into this game. Joe jumps on to the Nook, and I like this. It suits his playstyle, it suits the statistics that we saw, the heavy focus on entry, and on a map like Chalet, where basement can be a route to many great things, we'll see what he can exploit. And he starts off over towards main garage, and again, Reven actually get the opening pick. So the very beginnings of the rounds have actually not been too bad, and I don't know whether it's a coincidence or not, but Joe actually hasn't been all that involved at the very beginning of a lot of these rounds. I don't think that's by force. I don't think Reven are necessarily wanting that to be the case all the time. Team Liquid are playing quite aggressive in the early round. So Joe has scouted ahead. He has information on West Main and he's confident to push up and he's looking to try and exploit that dining position, but there is a cross set up. And again, he just hasn't droned it off. So Joe got the amount of information that he thought he needed. In that instance, he sees dining, he sees the mirror, he's probably like, great, there's probably one person tucked in the corner, holding that line of sight, trying to deny lobby. And little did he know that Parley was just lurking inside of Trophy for free. And clearly, Reven don't have enough pre-placed drones elsewhere to have known that there was another player there or it wasn't relayed correctly or whatever. So things now are really compounding for Reven, and it looks like they've gone back to their old ways. Joe back online. We're going to see the drone established again on mezzanine. And look, again, I'm going into this cold, so I don't know exactly what to expect, but I anticipate he's probably going to go on that balcony again, maybe try to push through to office and force something. But we'll see if they're perhaps a little bit more coordinated. Unfortunately, drone does get taken down, so Joe likely will need to re-drone it at the beginning of this action phase. So this is a little bit different from Joe. Typically, he's routing front door, taking it down, then rappelling up. This time just providing a little bit more support. And I think that's probably in response to Liquid being quite aggressive in the early round, not being afraid to spawn peek, etc. But now this is all feeling a little bit more normal. Alex not to take down front door this time, so that's interesting. And he'll just sit and wait at the moment. Conscious that someone is going to be playing that mezzanine mirror. That's Nesk, but he's tucked away, playing quite passive. Gets unlucky timing there. Not that Valk probably would have been exposed anyway. So secondary drone now used in sight. Spots the deployable shield in piano. And again, I feel like at the moment the cogs are turning that he wants to try and make an aggressive play and get some space in sight. But with that very open setup at the breach, he needs to be careful. Now, he won't use the Gon 6 this time. Instead opts to melee the barricade. So this is more than likely giving away a sound cue to probably the mirror, if not the frost. Who's now claimed the cross back in piano, so probably any opportunity to maybe sneak into side is now forfeited. Scan goes out, and the punch, aggressive, looks to take down the deployable shield. And I don't know if that actually did land. Yeah, so deployable shield is down, you can see it on the left-hand side, so that's pretty good value there from Joe. There was some risk attached to that, but I think that was pretty well played. I like that. The trade elsewhere. And again, it's that box position again from Joe. So he's not getting that support from the team over towards Library. He's largely solo pushing this position. I mean, we can go back a little bit and confirm. So we go over to Nesk then. And as you can see, there is just nobody from the attacking team to be seen here over towards Library. And that allows Nesk to reposition and just wins that fight. There's no pressure. There's no threat of a trade. The double window at Library isn't even taken down. It's quite disjointed at the moment from Reven. So, look, well done by Joe to clear the util. That was great. But if they're not even prepping to push this side of the map, or if it's just him soloing, that is probably not the best of plans. And unfortunately, this probably does go down as another bad play in his column. All right, so at this point, we are 5-0 in favor of Team Liquid, and for all intents and purposes, the game is pretty much over at this point. If they can maybe salvage around, there's something in it. But fortunately, from what we've seen thus far, it has been quite one-sided. So the objective is basement here for round 6, and Joe has gone back, or stuck with, the line, which, as we've sort of seen throughout this VOD, hasn't been given a whole lot of value to the rest of the team. It doesn't seem to be synced up with many pushes elsewhere. That sort of makes sense. We've seen this a lot though. The drone up main through fireplace, trying to get info mez. I anticipate that the mirror is being used once again here by Team Liquid, and it's Nesk holding it. So it's very similar setup here. And to their credit, Reven actually did dislodge this pretty well last time. Joe may be spotting the leg there on the balcony, but he already knows that there is a player in this position. Scan goes out, just making sure that he isn't tucked in the corner. But they fall off, so Reven kind of fall off there, it would seem. Yep. So they're actually going to give up on that clear and instead focus their efforts on breach. And that can work if you're able to flood sight. There is the risk of the vert denial though. E1D goes out, util deep. And I like this from Reven, so they elect to go very direct And again, Joe just gets timed. Now, I think we could probably say that this one of all of them was maybe the most unlucky. He's sending that util deep, trying to flash that position. Somehow, that defender weathers it. He gets swung. He dies. Look, I think the worst thing about that round was probably the inability for Reven to find the trade there. Yes, it was a very swift swing. It was a really sharp shot onto Joe. But you've got to be winning those trades if you're going for a flood into sight like that. So again, unfortunate for Joe. Probably a little bit unlucky. That util not quite hitting the mark and then left with his hands in his pockets. Well, there's only going to be one defensive round then in this game, and as was characteristic throughout the entire major, Joe on the Warden, able to do some special things here and there, but I'm sure at this point the tilt factor has well and truly set in, and they know that this game is pretty much over. So we'll see what he is able to achieve. As you would anticipate, Warden very aggressive during the prep phase, trying to find drones where possible, but Liquid not really presenting them. Being quite passive, and rightly so, with Solace on the board anyway. Now, one thing we saw from Team Liquid was that extension in through Boiler, deployable shield, only the single reinforcement. Bit more defensive here from Reven, which is not bad inherently. They didn't decide to just reinforce off and play the deployable shield deeper in sight, which is fine. Snowmobile already open. 30 seconds into the round, though. That's not ideal. So if there was a mute gem on that, it was dealt with very, very swiftly by the attack. So Joe just holding down the angle. As long as it's at head level, I think that's still favorable. May have been spotted, though, by that drone. Definitely giving away a sound cue now. And gets caught out. So Resets has just sent it into the site. We'll have a look back. So as we can see, it's a double stack outside the breach. Resets is the player that we're focusing in on overhead. And this has been, I guess, the trend throughout this VOD, right? Is Joe just getting caught off guard, getting caught in bad positions. See if this one was maybe just a little bit unlucky. So he got drone deep, and Resets has just pushed straight in and just caught Joe on the rotation. And I guess, to be fair, that probably is a bad play from Joe. We saw earlier how he was watching the breach from that exact same angle, yet he's not watching it as he tries to fall back off that angle. Again, probably not anticipating Resets or any player, for that matter, to push directly off that drone, but it's spotted that there was no one bot main stairs. It's probably also got decent information or decent read that no one was in blue, so they were just able to sort of send it. They knew there was a player con. Team Liquid found the kill, and unfortunately for Joe, that was a 0-7 performance. Now, just to close out the video, I want to make it very, very clear that none of these videos are designed to rag on players or to encourage people to do so. They are simply here to try and educate people, try and have a discussion, hopefully implement some ideas into your own game plan. So with that said and done, I hope you all enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one. This is so awkward.